So what's the currently, is there a time issue as far as filing an eviction? Can you give us kind of like the standard timeline? You have an at-will tenant. Is it filing and then they get noticed 30 days? Is there a hearing that has to happen? What's the timeline look like?
You have to do the notice of termination first. So if you want to just go with a timeline of an at-will tenancy, it is a 30-day notice of death of the occupant or the owner, and 30-day notice of termination of at-will tenancy. And then you have to wait the 30 days. On the 31st day, if that person doesn't move out, you can then file what's called the eviction complaint, the unlawful detainer complaint. The timeline for that really then it varies on very different things. So once it's filed, you have to wait for the court to file. So it could be 1 day, it could be 5 days, depending on how busy the court is. Once it's filed, you have to then serve it. If you can personally serve, so if you're the named defendant, Bill, and I personally serve you, a response is due in 5 days. But if Bill's not available and I serve Martin instead, it is 10 calendar days for service to be effective, and then it's 5 court days for her to answer. So it is, you're waiting essentially 15, 17 days, depending on when it was served. From there, as I tell people that call in consultations, it then really depends on what the tenant does next. Everything is dependent on the tenant. If there's no response at that period from the 5 or the 15-ish days, you can do a request for entry of default and default judgment. Depending on how fast or slow the court is, that can be 1 to 5 days. Once you have judgment, then you get a writ. Again, can take a couple of days for the court to issue that, and then you send it off to the sheriff. Some sheriffs are quick, some are super slow. So if you're going by way of what's called a default, you're usually anywhere between 22 to 30 days. Then the tenant, instead of going default, can answer, and they can answer representing themselves and request a court trial. Then you're looking at about 40 days to the point that you get a trial. And that's from the time the complaint is. So from the time the complaint is filed to trial, you're looking at 40 days. Now, if a tenant gets an attorney and makes a jury demand, you're looking anywhere from 4 to 6 months. Maybe more, maybe less. It really depends on how busy the court is, what settlement communications are, what their defenses are. It really is, unfortunately, pretty dependent on what the tenant does.
And so if a tenant, even when, let's say, an at-will insists on extending the process with every possible legal right, they're going to demand a court trial, they're going to get an attorney and such, you're still talking 6 months, 9 months to get them out, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no shortcut process. But that's,
well, that's short. That's short compared to going to regular civil court, but it really depends. Our goal is to get things to trial within 60 days.